Hey, yo, salute to the people. It's the social forecast. Today is Tuesday, October 1st. I hope you all did something today to further your goals and to help you realize your dreams. All right, let's get into this Amber Guyger case. Verdict. A lot of people are talking about it. It's trending. It's a hot topic. When this incident first happened, and I've been following this case from the beginning. I did a vlog on it when the incident first happened, and the shooting death of Botham Jean in his own apartment. And I did say that I was going to follow the trial, follow the case, and that I would be back to do a vlog after the verdict. It's interesting. You know, I've pretty much watched just about every video out there, every vlog, listened to every major and minor media platform out there, different opinions, different perspectives. There's a couple things that are standing out to me with this case and the verdict and pretty much people's perceptions and thoughts and opinions about it. The first thing that I'm hearing that really rubs me the wrong way about this verdict in this case is a lot of people are saying that they're in a celebratory mood. A lot of people are saying that they are happy and that they're, you know, they feel like we finally got justice with this verdict. I don't want to downplay the fact that I am happy that this case ended in a guilty verdict, but at the same time, I feel like because we get so little, you know, black people, in the way of these moments where we are vindicated and justified, and you know, for our plight and the feeling that we are not treated as equals still in this country, you know, with the racial divide the way it is still in 2019. But I don't ever want to start throwing out terms and phrases like we finally got justice, because when you really look at this case and you really break it apart and you look at the historical verdicts that have come out of cases of police shootings of unarmed people, shootings that the people feel like are unjustified, that the law somehow always seems to side with the police officers. This verdict could have gone totally different if even one of the components of this case had been different. Even just one. If Botham Jean would have been in the hallway outside of his apartment, walking down the hall, and if he would have come into contact with Amber Guyger and she shot and killed him after an interaction or exchange, and if she would have said, oh, well, he was in the hall, I didn't recognize him, I thought he was an intruder, I didn't think he belonged there, and that scenario could have played out totally different. The only reason I think the guilty verdict came about was because the defense team really, at the end of everything, all the arguments, all of the speculation, the thoughts and fears of supposed former officer Guyger saying that she was in fear for her life because she thought she was in her apartment and there was an intruder there. After all of that, at the end of the day, you cannot look past the fact that you were in another person's home. You were not on official police business. You were not responding to a complaint. You were not serving a warrant. There was no reason for you to be inside that person's home. If you take that part out of it, I don't think this verdict goes the way it does. And because of that, I'm not ready to say we have finally gotten justice. I'm not ready to feel a sense of accomplishment in that way, because it's not justice. It's just a matter of circumstance that could not be explained away or justified. What justice looks like is not this case. It's not this verdict. I'm happy that the family can feel like they've gotten justice because their family member who was killed, who was taken away from them, who will never come back, they can feel like the person responsible has to deal with the consequences of that. But justice for us as a whole doesn't look like this. Justice looks like not being killed by a police officer on or off duty for no reason. Justice for us looks like not having to not only be in fear prior to this case of driving down the street or walking down the street and being pulled over or approached by a poorly trained, overzealous police officer. When this incident happened, the fear at that point became, well, shit, if I can't drive down the street, if I can't walk down the street, now I can't even be in my own home in the safety and privacy of my residence and not have to fear potentially being killed by a police officer who enters the wrong apartment, whether they thought it was their own. Because, if this case would have ended in a not guilty verdict, I believe that it would have opened up a floodgate for a lot more potentially dangerous situations for a lot of us. Because if the argument can be, well, I thought I was in my own home, then what would have happened the next time? Oh, well, we were responding to a complaint, entered the wrong apartment by mistake, or we were serving a warrant and knocked on the wrong door, or kicked in the wrong door. It's hairline things, of course, not to split hairs, but because of the injustices that we have had to deal with for so long, it's a shame, but we have to grasp at straws, and every little inkling that we get of feeling like this is justice for us. This is not justice. This is one case. When the entire system is reformed, when the entire complexion of what it looks like when police interact with the general public, not just black and brown people, not just white people, but everyone across the board, when that is even, when that is equal, when the police officers no longer are allowed to feel like they can use deadly force on any of us and potentially get away with it by simply saying, I felt like I was in fear for my life. When that changes, that's when people can say, okay, we're getting justice and we're going in the right direction. There have been a lot of changes to the ability for a police officer to use deadly force and say, well, I felt like I was in fear for my life. Because now there are laws being proposed and in some states being implemented where the burden of a police officer proving that they were in imminent danger, it's becoming a little more stringent, a little more strict, which is a good thing. It's progress. It's not yet justice, because all the other unarmed black and brown people, men and women, who have been killed, who will never come back also, they never got their day in court. Botham Jean never got his day in court. It's always the family members who have to go to court upset, hurt, and struggling through tears and through talking about their loved one and trying to paint a picture for the verdict, for the jury, of why their loved one didn't deserve what happened to them. Whatever the situation was. It just so happened that in this particular case, there was no question of noncompliance. There was no question of any possible wrongdoing on the part of Botham Jean, because he was in his apartment. There should have been no police contact for any reason whatsoever. And that's just the reality of it. And until this becomes the norm and it gets to the point where these police officers are forced to understand that, all right, we can't do this because this is what's going to happen, that's when you may start to see a change. Before that, there's no change. There's no justice. Not on a broad enough scale for me to feel like being in a celebratory mood, because this is still a murder trial. Someone is still dead, taken away from their family, and will never come back. A son, a brother, a friend. It's a little bit bittersweet. And then to touch on the back and forth about the Castle Doctrine, some people are saying that the judge, that they're upset at the judge for allowing the Castle Doctrine defense. You have some attorneys and some people who know the law who are saying the judge was actually smart to allow the defense team to argue the Castle Doctrine, because had she not done that, had the judge not allowed that defense, the guilty verdict, if it would have ended up being a guilty verdict, could have been cause for an appeal for not allowing the defense team to pursue the defense that they wanted to pursue. And that may be a fact to a certain extent. However, by allowing the Castle Doctrine defense, this trial could have been opened up to a not guilty verdict. Just so happens that in this case, the jury was smart enough to reject that defense. My thing is, how does the law allow for a Castle Doctrine defense of a person who's not in their castle? The whole point, I would think, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, the whole point of a Castle Doctrine, to me, you would have to be in your castle. If it's not your home, your residence in the first place, you shouldn't have been there. You had no reason to be there legally. How can you enact a defense of Castle Doctrine? That's why these states that have these Castle Doctrine defenses, these stand your ground laws, it's inadequate, to put it mildly. It shouldn't exist because there's just too much room there. And I'm from states that don't have, these crazy loopholes in the law. I'm from New Jersey, where there's no Castle Doctrine defense. I'm from New Jersey, where in most cases, there's not even a self-defense law. You kill someone, you intend to kill them, your actions deliberately bring about the death of another person. You're dealing with the consequences of that, and it is what it is. Now, that may be different for police officers, but I'm talking citizen to citizen. But my biggest thing is, and what would allow me to feel okay in saying justice has been reached for us, is when the laws apply to the same way to the people who are supposed to be following the laws, for the people who are supposed to be enforcing them. Just because you're a police officer doesn't mean that you should be able to operate on the outskirts of the law just because you have a badge. And just you saying, I felt like my life was in danger. I felt like this person was going to do something to me. So I eliminated the threat because I thought I was in the right, or I thought I was in my own apartment. That shit wouldn't work for a citizen. The only reason this trial was even ever considered to be close was because this was a police officer who perpetrated this crime. If it was another citizen, it would have been a no-brainer. It would have been case open, closed, under the jail, and that's it. But because it's a police officer, we extend these extra courtesies, these extra benefits of the doubt. And it's like, why? The person who has the badge should be the person who has more of the onus placed on them. You should be more responsible than the average citizen. And because this person chose, after they entered this man's apartment, this innocent man's apartment, because she chose to pull her weapon, to use deadly force, rather than to try and talk to this person after she pulled her gun. Because once you pull your gun on someone, you, in that situation, have the upper hand. So there would have been no reason for her not to talk to him to find out, oh, I'm in the wrong apartment. If that's really what happened. I don't believe that's what happened. I don't believe she didn't know she was in the wrong apartment. I don't know what happened, but that just doesn't make sense to me. Because if you follow the case and you follow the evidence, there were too many visual cues from the point at which Amber Guyger parked on the wrong floor of the parking garage to the point where she got to the wrong door, somebody else's apartment door. There's too many visual cues, tired or not. There were too many visual cues, in my opinion. I don't care how many people you're texting or how distracted you say you were. There were too many visual cues to tell you, this is not where you're supposed to be right now. And still, we were on the edge of our seats. Still, it was close. Still, we didn't know when that verdict was about to be read whether or not it was going to be guilty or innocent. And that's the biggest plight of our people at the end of the day. It's not knowing, and it's fucked up. Anyway, I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.